All right, off we go. So today we're doing online algorithms, which I don't know if many of you have seen before. When I was your stage, I hadn't. What have we done so far? We did some linear expectation the first time. Then we did hashing heavy hitters. Then we did linear probing. Then we did randomized contraction for minimum cut. Our first one was graphs. We did another one with graphs when we studied the giant component. And then last time we did randomized rounding. So we did maxat and set cover in class. Didn't have time for covering integer programs, but that's okay. And so today, apparently you're not going to learn anything on the probability side, but we'll look at two problems. One has to do with caching, okay, which you may have seen some algorithms for before in some systems class or something. And then this nice problem called buy or rent. Okay, so it's kind of fun actually. The homework problem for this chapter is usually the most popular of the year. Okay, so caching. This is at least how computers used to be built. Uh, so a computer at the end of the day is just like some memory, and then you have some CPU that each step takes some memory, does a little operation, and writes it back, right? And so in the simple kind of Turing model, you just have a ton of memory and this one kind of processor. But in real life, your memory is broken up into multiple levels. So the biggest one is usually a hard drive, right? Which actually, like in the old days, used to be a spinning magnetic disk. That's not so common anymore. Now it's going to be like a solid state drive. But that could be on the order of terabytes, right? And then you have your RAM, which is volatile memory. If you turn off your laptop, that memory will erase. But otherwise, it's much faster because it's just like maintaining electric pulse or something. And then on the CPU, there's going to be some smaller RAM like L1 or L2, and maybe these days there's L3 and so forth. So the idea is that your CPU needs something ultimately that starts here, but it'll first ask its little cache here, which will ask RAM, which will then ask the hard drive. Okay, and so whenever the RAM gets something from the hard drive, it'll save it here for a little while, hoping that you might ask for it again, because this will be faster. Okay, so these memory hierarchies are like almost like the biggest driver of speed ups in the past, in the sense that like without this, like it doesn't matter how fast your CPU is, you'd be completely memory bound. So okay, uh, so in the general model, or at least kind of the play model we'll work with. You imagine you have like n items. They might represent fixed amounts of memory or something, but in general, there's some big set of n items, and then you sort of have k locations where k is much smaller. They represent your cache. So your cache can hold k items, and the program requests different items, different pages or whatever online. Give me that page. Give me this page. Give me that page. Okay, and before serving it to the CPU, it loads that page into RAM. Okay, and that also means since n is much bigger than k, as you load one page into RAM, you have to kick out another page. Okay, so your real decision is which page are you going to kick out? Because if that page gets requested, now you have to wait for it to come from the slow memory again. Okay, so that's the game we're playing. Ideally, when we request an item, it's already in the cache, so you can serve it quickly. In the bad case, you'll get a cache miss. In the bad case, yeah, you miss. So you're just trying to avoid that, right? And if you want to have multiple hierarchies, you can imagine having, playing this game at each level of the hierarchy. Okay, so good, good. Oh, okay, sorry, I blew it. Okay, so here's the game we're going to play. It's going to be two columns. Requests and a cache of size 3. Okay, and so I'm going to just show you a number, and then we're going to put it into the cache. And I guess real decisions will come up when you have to decide who to evict. Okay. All right. So the first request comes in. That's number 1. Okay. So you put the 1 here, and then the next request comes in. That's 2. So now your cache will look like this. There's no real choice to make at this stage. It didn't matter where we put it. Next request is 1. So it's still 1, 2. You haven't missed anything yet. And now here comes page 4. So I'll put that in the last slot. Okay. So up to this point, there's really nothing to do. Let's see if it gets interesting. Okay, 3. All right, item 3 comes in. Who do you want to kick out? Okay, poor fellow. Something like this. And then I'll ding you cash miss. I mean, you couldn't help it, but you missed that one. All right, the next one is 5. Okay, who do you want to kick out? 3? Anyone else? Most people are going with 4. You still want 3? Okay. We're going to kick out 4 then. Okay. You missed that one too. Let's see what comes up next. 2. Bummer. Okay. Who do you want to kick out now? 1? I don't know how you guys are in sync. That makes no sense to me. Okay. You missed that one. All right, the next one. Okay, who do you want to kick out? 3. Okay. And now next one is, oh, it's over. Okay, so that, but you get the sense of the game, right? So the question is, can you come up with some kind of smart caching strategies to get less misses? Okay. And we're gonna do some kind of worst case thing. We're not gonna like model the request statistically or anything. Okay. Okay, here's a blank slide. Because you might have heard of some strategies, or you can just, intuit some strategies. Okay, so what are some strategies for evicting items? Yeah. Least recently used. So least recently used is whatever's the kind of oldest item in your cache. What else? Most recently used. It's less common. So whatever item was just requested, you're like, they're never going to ask the same thing twice in a row. Yeah. Okay. Random violence. Okay. So there's something called least frequently used. F is for frequently. And so here you'd actually maintain like a counter for each one. Yeah. Most frequently used. Yeah. Probably the worst idea on the list. But here you maintain a counter and it's like, wow, this is really popular. Let's get that one. Any others? That's good enough. Okay. Uh, okay, so least frequently used, least recently used, the most ones aren't there on the list. We're also going to look at something that's sort of like a weaker version of the counter idea. I call it not recently used, but sometimes it's called 1-bit LRU. But basically, when an item gets requested, you're going to mark it. So instead of maintaining a whole counter for everyone, we're just going to maintain a bit. Okay, so as an item gets requested, you're going to mark it, mark it, mark it, mark it. When you kick something out, you're going to try to kick out something that's not marked, which is sort of saying it wasn't that recently used because the most recently used ones are all marked. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where everything's marked. You have to kick something out. At that stage, we'll clear all the bits, and then you kick something out that's unmarked. Okay, so it's sort of doing like a least recently used-ish. Least recently used would fit in this. Okay. All right. Good. Okay, so if you did worst case analysis, you would just, in a normal sense, right? Normally, like how would you assess your performance? Oh, just how many I missed. You just try to minimize the total number. I mean, at some level, we're trying to minimize the total number we miss, right? But at some level, well, if it's a worst case kind of thing, right? Adversary knows your strategy, right? What can the adversary always do? Yeah. Sorry? Spy. But how can they really make your life painful? Yeah, an adversary can always ask for something that's not in the cache and force a cache miss, right? And you just say, no matter what algorithm I do, I can't really do better than missing everything, right? And from that standpoint, it's like, well, how can I come up with, distinguish one algorithm from another? Right? It's not maybe the right model. Okay. So what we're going to take is reframe it from a worst case analysis in that sense of the word to like a competitive analysis. We're actually still going to assume worst case inputs. So we won't lose that kind of strong sense of robustness. But what we want to kind of say is that if there was a good cache strategy in hindsight, could we also have gotten a good one? Like if the adversary always requests a brand new page, there's nothing you can do. But if there was some pattern or something, and something had worked, could we be kind of competitive with it? Can we compare ourselves to some other online algorithm? Okay, so this way, completely hopeless, we're not completely penalized for it. That was just completely hopeless. So, so what we want to do is do something like a competitive analysis. So we want to minimize the ratio of our algorithm, how many it misses, compared to if you look in hindsight, what was the best you could do? Okay. So, okay, so, right. Okay. And I have an example so we can see, yeah. That's a great question. So if I suppose I just told you offline what the pages coming up will be. Okay. Let's for simplicity think of k as finite. Like that k equals 3. Is there an algorithm, an efficient algorithm for this? At least if k is a constant, yeah. Okay, so this is like a direct heuristic. Oh, okay. So let me just evict the one that'll be asked again furthest in the future. That seems to make sense. Is that correct? You have no idea. Huh? Oh, you do? Okay. That might be known. I had in mind like you could at least do dynamic programming if k is small. Oh, can you just phrase it as an interval problem? Yeah. So maybe it does work. Just with all greedy things, I have to like at least write it down to be sure. Okay. Well, your 381 class taught something interesting. Okay. Uh, interesting. Okay, I should know that probably. Okay. Anyhow, so offline is possibly doable. At some level, well, you'll see how we kind of get around not even having to worry about this explicitly. Okay. So, okay, but we're gonna as a warm up to kind of get used to competitive analysis, we're gonna do least frequently used. See if it's good, if it's bad. In fact, I guess this is set up as a vote. Okay, so least frequently used is the one with counters. At some level, that's like the most demanding resource hungry one among the ones we had because you're actually counting everything. So every time you evict whatever is the least popular one. Okay. All right. So I guess you have three choices. You get to vote good or bad, or you're not voting. Okay. So first, who's not voting? Odd. Okay. Huh? Oh, okay. Maybe me. Yeah, plus me. Okay. Who thinks it's going to be pretty good? I'm not sure how good is defined, but someday I'll learn how to speed count. I would say that's like 72%. Okay, who thinks it'll be bad? I don't think you voted. Okay, put that at like 25%. Okay, you're all liars. Okay, but more people thought it would be good than bad. Okay, and three of you couldn't bother to say you won't vote. Okay, so let's go through it. So here's one example I rigged up. Request one comes in. a bunch of times. So this is where the cache has size 2. So pretty simple example. And then we alternate between 2 and 3. Okay. So because 1 is already in there and has a very high count, we never evict it. So the next round we bump out the 2, and then we bump out the 3, and then we bump out the 2, and so forth. Okay. So you end up missing all of this alternating 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3 because 1 has such a high count. Now, in hindsight, what would be the optimum? In hindsight, well, you have to put 1 here. So you have to miss that first one. Okay. Then you add the 2. You missed that one. And then if you knew the whole future was going to be 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, you don't need any 1, then you would put 3 here, and then you wouldn't miss any more. Okay. So that kind of example, it's actually very easy to fool least frequently used in some sense because you can just load up on something that will never come up again. Okay. So with k equals 2, to fool LFU, we load up on the first item for a large number of rounds, and then for twice as many rounds, I alternate between 2 other items. Good. Okay. So if I was doing Q and then 2Q, how many misses does opt have? I think it has 3, just when those items occurred for a first time, so that's the bare minimum. And how many did least frequently used have? Yeah, I think 2Q plus 1 is exact. Okay. So you get 3. No, let's do it this way. We get 2Q plus 1 over 3, right? And then, I'm making whatever example I want, so I can just make Q larger and larger and larger. And we conclude that, okay, this thing is unbounded. There's no finite bound. Whatever bound you give, I'll make Q big enough to break it. Okay, so least frequently used can be really, really bad in the worst case. Okay, good. All right, so it's unbounded. All right, so next thing we're going to do is look at not recently used. Okay, so that's the 1-bit marking. Every time you add a page or you ask for a page, we're going to mark it, and we're always going to evict unmarked pages or items. When everything's marked, so you have nothing left to evict, then we'll remove all the marks and pick one of them arbitrarily. We'll make no assumption about how we pick it. One thing I do want to point out is that our favorite least recently used can be implemented as a 1-bit marking thing. Like if you kind of think about the least recently used kind of sequence, it's always picking something that would be unmarked. Okay, so if we can show that this has some competitive ratio, it'll also apply to least recently used. Okay, anyone want to guess if I have a cache of size k, what the competitive ratio will be? Sort of hard to guess, but maybe it's fun. Or you can guess unbounded. Yeah. Like k over 2, you're saying? Okay, I got k. Maybe it is k over 2 and I was being sloppy. But we're going to try to show that if you're using a cache of size k, you're going to make at most k times as many misses as opt. Okay? All right. So, okay, good. Good. Okay. So I guess the main conceptual question is how you even get the analysis set up, because this is sort of weird, this competitive analysis thing, right? We walk through, I mean, if I was trying to show a very bad bound, like we just did, I just have to give you some toy example that gets a bad bound and say, okay, you can't get any bound that's good because it's always going to lose to this. But if I want to positively bound something, okay, it's not clear how to even break things down. Okay, so I think it's good to pay attention just to the setup, which of course might appear simple in hindsight, but it was probably not so simple once upon a time. Okay. Oh, I guess I have an example for us to go through just so we can see how it works. Okay. So the first request uh, is the one. You have to miss that, and this will be marked. So if we go through the same sequence, I think that's what we have set up. You have this one, and it'll be marked. Okay. Then the first two comes in, and you do have to miss that. So now I have one and two that are marked. Okay. Now three comes in. So we're going to remove both the marks, and then we're going to choose one of the two. And I'll choose the one that's worse for us. So I'll choose the two. Okay. So now one is in there unmarked, and three is in there marked. Okay. And now two comes in. It's going to replace the one because one is unmarked, and it'll both be marked. And now once we get into this stage for that example, we'll be home free. Okay, because there'll be no new pages. So we can at least see that for the thing that fooled LFU, this marking, you know, handles it. Okay. And here we made 1, 2, 3, 4 mistakes, and opt will make 3 mistakes. Okay, so they're 4/3 ratio. Okay, good. All right, so now let's prove this claim that we're going to get at most k times as many misses. Yeah. Oh, like, do you just need like one extra? Uh, maybe 2k is enough because 2k is enough to like flush out the whole cache and have new items or something. I'm not sure. So yeah, can we assume n is something small or at least relative to k? Um, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not. Uh, I mean, okay, I think there's different levels when you ask a question. For example, like the adversarial kind of example where you just request a new page every time. So in n rounds, you have n new pages, right? Uh, that's convenient to have n because then no one can get any of them right, right? Just generate a new item for each one. So I think it depends on, okay, so is that equivalent to just like cycling or something? Could I just cycle maybe not 1 to k, 1 to 2k or something? But I guess it's a so some of if you knew the algorithm and it's deterministic, then all you probably care about is whether or not you're going to choose a repeating item or a new item. That may be true, uh, but it gets a little bit it gets messier for a couple of reasons. For example, we're going to study eventually randomized algorithms. So we don't assume the adversary necessarily looks into the cache. They know the algorithm, but they don't necessarily know the state of the cache. So then this whole like adversary looks into the cache and chooses what's not there gets a little bit iffy. If that makes sense. Anyway, uh, so the answer is I'm not totally sure. It won't. I don't think if you look back on our lecture, you'll find it too relevant. But yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. Anyway, sorry, it's not a great answer. Okay. All right. Let's show this thing has a worst case bound to k. Other questions? So what we're going to do, just to get started, is we'll just fix some sequence of requests, whether or not they're between 1 and n and 1 and 2k, I don't know, but like, between 1 and n. And okay, so how are we going to break this down? So since we're doing the marking algorithm, what we're going to do is we're going to take this sequence and we're going to split it up like every time we reset the marks. Okay. So every time I find myself resetting the marks, I'll call that a run. Yeah, pages coming in, some are new, some are different. And then E7 forces us to reset the marks. Okay, and that'll start a new run. Okay, so for example, take the first run. How many distinct items are in the first run? Just to make sure we're on the same page. Okay, in this example, there's 6, but like in general, k, and it's the k plus 1th new item that'll force the new one to start. Okay, so each run has k distinct items. Okay, so it is true that some of these items might come from here, but if you're just looking inside here, it's going to be k distinct ones. And the next one afterwards uh, is going to be the k plus 1. Okay, and one thing nice, right, is that things get inserted and then they're marked. So within a run, you're only going to make k mistakes. Okay, so in this example, maybe these runs look small, but the first one could have been much bigger than length k. Okay, but you only really made a mistake when you made a mark. So until you reset the marks, the number of mistakes is equal to the size of the cache. Okay, so each run you only make k mistakes. This is a great start for our analysis. Now what we want to show is we want to show that any algorithm has to make, like if I can show that any algorithm has to make at least one mistake in each run, right? Then in each run, we make k mistakes. Any other algorithm, no matter how smart, has to make at least one mistake. So then we get our k to 1 ratio. Okay, so now what we want to do is want to show that any algorithm has to make at least one mistake. Okay, so each run has k distinct items, and as we said, the first item after a run is distinct from the first k distinct items in a run. Okay, how can I argue that opt has to make at least one mistake? Yeah. Yeah, say that again. It's a little slower. Um, yeah, okay, yeah. So at some level, like between this run and that next item, that's k plus 1 distinct items. So one of them basically has to get left out. You have to be like a little bit careful in wording this. But okay, so the first item comes in, and then you're gonna have to like right, okay, you're gonna have to miss one of the last k minus 1 items in the run, or the first item in the next run, because otherwise that would be k whole items plus you have the first item you started with. Okay, and you just kind of roll that forward through every run, and you see that opt has to have at least one miss per run. Okay, so the runs basically kind of group k plus 1 distinct items together. You have to make at least one mistake. Okay. All right, so that's how we get this ratio. We'll say NRU will ultimately miss k times the number of runs. Any algorithm will have to make mistakes proportional to the number of runs, and then you're going to get your k. Okay. All right, good. Okay, good. All right, so as usual, we got some preliminary analysis on a basic and deterministic algorithm. Now the question is, can you do better? And does anyone have any ideas for how to do better? You want to do better than K. Yeah. I'll remove half of the marks. That's a new idea. Okay, so one idea is to remove half the marks. Uh, okay. Other ideas. It's not a bad idea. I'll write that down. Remove half the marks. I guess there's another question of which half or how you select the half. Maybe randomly, when in doubt, just do it randomly. Other ideas? It's fun to guess before I reveal the algorithm. So yeah, need to. Actually, any algorithm is basically fine. Although ultimately we'll study a marking algorithm. Oh, some kind of double marking. One should be careful because at the extreme of like adding more and more marks, you recover some. Well, not okay, not quite, but we do know that least frequently used doesn't quite work either. Although that is different. Yeah, okay. Can you do some like two-level marking? So if everything's marked, like everyone loses one mark, something like this. So some kind of like rising tide, or I don't know. Yeah. Okay. These are all good ideas. Of course, there's no slides for them, but okay. So some kind of randomized least frequently used. So maybe like okay, in the worst case, actually maybe we can think about this. So okay, so here's maybe one interpretation, which won't work, but all right. So here's LFU from before that just counted and deterministically always picked the biggest one. But maybe like a natural thing is like pick elements sort of pick the guy to evict like inversely proportional to their count. Okay, so if one person has count 1 and the other one has count 100, uh you should be like picking the one in 100, like the 100 one, like 1 out of 101 times, and the other one 100 out of 101 times. Okay, so the less likely counts should be more likely to get kicked out. But we can actually think about what that does in our example here, if it's just purely inversely proportional. Okay, so at some level, we'll basically do mostly the same thing. So you'll still load up on 1, and now 1 has a huge tally. And not necessarily all the way through, but for a long time, oh, that's optimal, sorry. So you're gonna load up on 1, and for a long time, 1 will not get booted because 1 will still. So I was saying that if you did this kind of sort of like proportional eviction, you're still gonna hold down for 1 for maybe not all of 2Q, but like say at least half. In fact, all the way through, it's always gonna be pretty high because 3 and 2 are always gonna be at 1. So basically, each round there's only a 1 in Q chance of kicking out number 1. So you need like Q rounds to kick it out based on your homework problem. Yeah. Recency. Uh, okay. So yeah, well, it'll do better insofar as it starts to resemble LRU and NRU. Okay, but I'll write that down. I don't have anything clever to say about it, but maybe some kind of randomized recency. Question is what distribution you'll pick, but maybe you can try different ones. All right. I would argue what eventually we'll analyze is even simpler than all these, but if anyone wants to give it a shot. Okay, enough guessing in the dark. Okay, so we're going to analyze a randomized NRU. Same algorithm as before, just when I evict something, I'm going to pick one randomly. Okay, that could be interpreted sort of as a randomized recently used thing, but anyway, that's the particular algorithm. It's nice that it's simple because we want to analyze it. Okay, does the algorithm make sense? Same as before, just when we evict, we'll pick one randomly. Okay, good. The other one we picked arbitrarily. So you don't assume anything. So one thing nice, right? So if you assume like you often assume an adversarial model that knows your algorithm. Okay. So at some level, like before, whatever concrete strategy you pick for kicking out something that's unmarked, the adversary can still look and choose something bad. So when we did the analysis, we didn't assume anything. Okay, we were only able to protect the ones that are marked. But here in this model, we're going to assume the adversary knows our algorithm, but doesn't necessarily know our coin tosses. Okay, so they can still try to say, what's the worst possible thing for your algorithm? But they don't totally know how it'll play out. Okay, and that'll make this kind of interesting. Okay, so anyone want to guess what bound we'll get? Great guess. We'll show that it's log k competitive. Okay, so that's much better than k. If you want to be dramatic, it's exponentially better than k. Okay. All right. All right. So let's prove that we're going to get a much better bound if we just choose it randomly instead of clumsily. Okay. So I think it's going to be the same setup as before. We'll still split into runs whenever we reset the marks. Okay. And one thing nice is that we'll still have some of the same properties as before. Each run will have k distinct items, right? Even though we're randomly evicting things, that invariant actually doesn't change because the marks sort of distinguish k from the next k plus 1th item. Okay, so even though this is sort of reconstructed in hindsight, there will always be k distinct items, k distinct items, k distinct items. Okay, now we're going to we're going to classify these items a little bit further. So as I go from one run to the next, there's going to be two kinds of items, right? There's going to be some items that, right? So, at the end, I reset the mark here, right? And there's some items coming, okay? And so I would say maybe there's two kinds. Some of these items were here, and you have some chance of maybe not missing them. And the other items are brand new. You don't have any chance. Okay. So some new items that aren't in the previous run, you're going to always give those up because you don't have those at the end of the run. And then the repeat items that are in the previous run, we're hoping to get some of those. Okay. Ooh, blank slate. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, whatever. All right. So here's maybe the key part that's going to unlock the analysis for us, and then afterwards you can reflect on how clever it was. So we're going to use this time a potential to analyze our algorithm. Okay. So what does the potential say? I'm going to be counting the number of items that are both in ops cache, but not in my cache. Okay. So for some reason, the optimum solution, even looking back in hindsight and stuff, wants to put in that item, and we didn't have it. Okay. All right. So let's look at a single run. Okay. So we're going to let phi in denote phi at the beginning of the run, and phi out denote the one after. Okay. So over the course of the run, the potential is going to change. It may go up, it may go down, depending on to what extent we resemble ops cache. Okay. All right, so let's say L is the number of new items in the run, and K minus L are repeating. All right, the first claim is that opt will always miss at least L minus phi in. Question is why? Opt will always miss L minus phi in. Why? Yeah, okay. So phi in says, let's say phi in is 5. That means opt is holding on to 5 items at the beginning of the thing that you don't have. Okay. Now there's these L new items, say that's like 13. Okay, so there's 13 new items that you automatically lose. How many of those does opt automatically lose? Well, there's a small chance that out of 13, that phi in many of them, 5 of them, it held on to. But it'll still have to miss the other 8. Okay, so this is just kind of slowly parsing what phi in and L really represent. Okay, that's okay. Next claim. So opt will always miss at least L minus phi in. The next claim is opt always misses phi out. Why? Okay, so this is the number of items that opt is holding on to that you decide not to hold on to at the end of the run. Okay, for some reason, opt has 6 items that you don't have at the end of the run. So why? Yeah. Yeah, we have all k distinct items that appeared in the run. Yeah, but let's go. So let's say phi out's like 6 for sake of concreteness. So we have the k items that appeared in the run, and apparently opt has 6 other items at the end of the run, leaving k minus 6 of the original items, right? But one way to think about that means that out of those k items that occurred in the run, they all passed through opt at some point. At least 6 of them got kicked out to make room for these 6 extra items, phi out extra items, right? So whatever phi out, whatever extra items opt is holding on to, they must represent to hold on to it. That means that some of those k had to get kicked out. Every time something's getting kicked out, that's also a cache miss. Yeah. Yeah, so opt can still only play the same game as us, which is the only choice you can make in this game is which item to kick out. The item that gets requested is automatically added, and you can only choose. Have to kick out or evict phi out of the k distinct items in the run. And each time you kick something out, that means something's missed because you're only kicking out on a miss. Okay, so it's sort of a backwards way of looking at it. Make sense? That one's a little subtle. Okay, so we put these things together, right? And we actually get the opt always misses. I'm just averaging the 2. L plus phi out minus phi in over 2. What does that mean? This is sort of the change in potential. So opt will always miss at least L over 2. That's good, because we're always going to miss L. And so it's nice to know that opt is kind of missing L over 2, plus this term. Okay, so what do we kind of accomplish in hindsight? Okay, so I think maybe what this step is doing, or one way to interpret it is as follows. We have these L misses automatically, right, from the L new items. So the first thing to worry about is, how can I ensure that opt misses something relative to that, something proportional to that, right? Because if opt doesn't miss any of them, we're just screwed. Like L could be K or something, we're just always screwed. But what this shows is that sort of opt basically misses L over 2 plus this change in potential, which, this seems kind of ugly. what does this mean? Except imagine taking this sum, this term, this difference, and then adding it up over multiple iterations, right? So this will get added in with a phi out minus phi in the next one, right? And also phi out for phi from me previous or something, right? But the nice thing is that phi in is equal to phi out from the previous iteration. So if you did this over many runs, you get this term over and over and over and over and over again. So the L over 2 and L, that's kind of nice. But you keep getting this difference added up, except all the inner terms will telescope. So all you're going to be left is one change of potential. Moreover, what's the potential starts at 0. It's always non-negative. And what says how big can it be? K. So this term is always K. Even when you take a bunch of them and add them together, it's always at most K. So it turns out that because of telescoping, which is maybe a trick you have or have not seen before, but it's a trick that's sort of used a lot in more advanced algorithms, uh, that difference actually won't be so bad. Okay, so keep an eye out for that. Good, good. How are we doing? Okay, all right, good. Okay, so now we have some sense of the fact that opt has to miss at least L over 2. Okay, now let's look at our algorithm. It's going to miss all L new items. That we know. Okay, and then there's going to be K minus L new items. So let's look at the first item. Sorry, K minus L repeating items. So these are items that were in the previous run. So you at least have a non-zero chance of holding on to. Okay. I guess in the worst case, all the new items come first and try to kick out as many as possible before the repeat items happen. So if you want, you can just assume that's the case. Okay. Now we're randomly kicking things out. So what are the odds we miss the first repeat item? So you had K items from the previous round. What are the odds that this particular item survives? Yeah. Sorry? 1 over K. Why? Yeah, okay, so you pick one. Well, okay, so things are getting kicked out randomly. That's a key part of this. Okay, yeah. Is it K minus L over K? Well, I think okay, so the question is uh yes. Okay, so so it misses if it got kicked out. So what are the odds it got kicked out before it was requested? L over K. So you've kicked out L, but they're chosen randomly out of K. So you have an L over K chance of getting kicked out. At most. That's in the worst case if all L the new items came first. You know, in general, there's at most L items that came first. Okay. Um, okay. What are the odds that it's going to miss the second repeat item bounded by? So first item was L over K because there's L requests previously. Now the second repeat item. Second repeat item. First repeat item was L over K because you kicked out L before. Now this is just the next one. That add up to one full hand. Yeah. It's going to be much simpler, I think. But you're in the right. Yeah. L plus 1. Because there's L new items plus the one for the first repeat item. So that's L plus 1 that were kicked out before this one was requested. So you get L plus 1 over K. Okay. All right. Yeah, so here's a picture. Uh, because after the first repeat, you have L new items and one repeat items. You have K minus L minus one items from the previous. Oh, did I do that right? One sec. Maybe I'm completely. How's my math going? Did I make a mistake? Um, oh, one sec. Okay, one sec. What I have written down, I lied, was L over K minus one. Okay, so let's do this slowly. One sec. So if you miss it once, you can't miss it again. I mean, you're gonna have it for the rest of the one, so you only have to worry about the first time that the repeat item comes in. Does that answer your question? This is a different repeat item. This is a new repeat item. Why did I write? All right, so just to clarify, what I have written down is L over K minus one. Okay. Oh, okay. Let me do this a little bit slowly. So out of okay, so out of K minus I minus one items uh that haven't okay. So okay, so you've already repeated one item, right? So out of the K minus one items uh that haven't been repeated from last run, exactly L of them have been convicted. Uh evicted. Evicted by the new items. Okay? So that's why on the second repeat, you're going to L over K minus one. And on the ith repeat, you'll get, okay, out of the K minus I minus one items. So these items have to be in your cache, the first I minus one repeat items. And out of these, L of them are kicked out uniformly at random by the new items. Okay, I made the same mistake last time I taught this. Okay, so you get L minus K minus I minus one. So there's actually a denominator that's going down slowly. Okay, just trust me. Okay, so you end up something like this. Okay, I know you're all looking at me like I'm making it up. Um, okay, let me just keep it moving and then I'll reflect a little later. Okay, good. So when you start looking at uh, this kind of thing, okay, how many misses do I expect on the repeats? Right. So you start getting something like L over K plus 1 minus I, or K plus 1. No, sorry. L over K plus L over K minus 1 plus L over K minus 2 plus and so forth. And so you got L log. Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Let's just put everything together. So if I sum everything together, the total number of op misses is going to be, so if I let like L sub I be the number of new items in run I, then you're going to get something like the sum of Li over 2 plus phi at the very end minus phi at the very beginning. Okay, so I'm leaving out, I didn't do the calculation where if I sum up all the phi out minus phi in, phi out minus phi in, they're going to telescope, and all you're left with is the outer terms. Okay? Okay, good. And so this, not only that, but phi is always non-negative, and it's at most, we said this before, k. So you're going to get this like sum of Li minus k over 2. And the k is basically kind of insignificant as the Li gets big. I think we're doing greater than or equal to. Oh, actually, this can just be 0, and then beginning is just 0, just by definition, right? Okay, so I think it's just 0. So you just get sum of Li. No, but you're doing greater than or equal to. So we're gonna bound, it could be, so opt makes Li plus phi n mistakes, and phi end is at least 0. We're just trying to lower bound and say opt makes at least this many mistakes. And meanwhile, the expected number of mistakes we make is we sum over all these i's, and we make Li mistakes right away, plus Li log k. Okay, and we put the ratio over 2, one over the other. If I'm letting L denote the sum of all the Li's, then we're getting something like 1 plus log k times the total number of new items divided by opt misses at least L over 2. So this is where you get your log k bound. 2 log k, yeah. Uh, oh, well, even if you take the harmonic series down to log k, you're still going to get log k, right? It's just going to be log k over 2. So you want to truncate it so you only get down to L over square root k. But that series is still going to get you 1/2 log k in that particular case. There are lower bounds for this. This might actually be tight. I should know this, of course. Okay. All right. Let's do one more. This one goes, I think, a little bit faster, but it's a fun story. Any questions about this though? Mess this one up every year. Yeah. No, I don't think it's a P equals NP thing. I think it's yeah, I forget. I just know that people have studied this. No, okay, so I think this you can try to show some kind of information theoretic thing or something. It doesn't necessarily have to relate to P because online stuff is a little bit different. So you can just try to generate some kind of random sequence that has some kind of like deviation or something. Being a little high level, but uh, yeah, you can just kind of create something like that's kind of noisy and show there's some bad distribution. Because each round you also make the L mistakes no matter what, and then the log K is coming from the the repeat. That's from the harmonic series from the repeat. The one is because you always make the L mistakes. Yeah. Uh, the short answer is maybe not. But all right. Let me just at least. Okay. So okay. So you're looking at, let's say, the second repeat item. Okay. So you know that one slot is definitely occupied by the first repeat item, and you're looking at one of the remaining non-repeat items. Okay. So I think one thing important is that, so your cache is going to look like this, right? So maybe it's good that I'm going through it slowly. You will have L new items and one repeat item. Okay. And so these slots can be occupied by any of the k minus one repeating items. Okay. One of them's already delegated. Okay. And so of the remainder, L of them are going to be killed off uniformly at random. And then the rest will occupy these slots. So the one is getting subtracted because they kind of automatically survive this particular round. You know that this has already been requested, it's already placed in a cache. You know the rest of the cache is occupied by some of the k minus one, and you know that L of them have been evicted and everything's symmetric. There's no distinction between any two pages. So any particular page is kicked out with probability, L over k minus one. Yeah, yeah. It's a little, you just have to like write it down and stick with it and go slow. It's never the first intuitive one. That gets me every time. Okay. All right. Let's do any other questions? Too bad. All right, let's do buy and rent. This one's fun. Okay. All right. I don't know if skiing is as big in Indiana, but like not as many mountains. But okay. So, when you go to a ski rental place, I mean you go skiing, right? You can either bring your own skis or you can rent them there. Right? And the problem is like you don't really know if you like skiing enough to buy them, right? It always like sounds fun and then okay. Depends on how many times you end up skiing, right? Also like you might tear your knee or something terrible, avalanche, etc. Okay, so should you rent or should you buy? The problem is you don't know how many times in the future. Let me give you another example, maybe from real life. You may be presented with a choice where you could either buy a car or just keep using Uber and Lyft forever, right? And after a while, you're using Uber and Lyft, and you're like, I guess I could have bought a car by now, right? But somehow you're like, I don't know, might move to a city, I don't know, right? Okay, so you might have been presented with this choice whether or not to buy or rent cars. Another example that might occur in a computer, take like a hard drive when it's not in use, a spinning hard drive, right? So hard drives are actually accelerate, they're slow at the beginning, right? So if you actually turn off the hard drive to save power and then you need to call something from it, you have to actually wait for it to like spin back up before it actually starts reading memory. Okay. So there's a real choice to make. Should I completely shut off the hard drive or should I just keep it spinning even though it's not directly being in use? Okay. But you can imagine a million other things in systems with some kind of upstart cost. Should I just keep it running? Maybe coal plants or something, maybe have something similar, right? Should I just keep this thing running because a full start actually takes so much extra power? Okay, good. So we're going to stick to the ski story. For some reason, I felt like I should have pictures on every slide. I made this slide a long time ago. But the game is a ski will cost K dollars for some known parameter K, and every day you can rent skis for $1. Okay, it's not realistic. K is really the proportion of buying to renting. And L would denote the number of days we end up skiing after all in your entire life. Okay. And what makes this tricky, of course, is you don't know L. Okay. Good. So every day you decide whether to rent the skis again or to finally buy the skis. without knowing if today will be the last day you ever ski. Yeah, it's a volatile world out there. Okay. All right. Now, if you did know how many days you would end up skiing, then it's not so tough. What would you do? Just to make sure we're on the same page. If K is less than L, then you should, huh? Then you should buy. And if K is bigger than L, yeah. So if L is less than K, you can rent every day. If L is bigger than K, you should buy on the first day. You should always be paying a minimum of L or K in hindsight. Question is, can we do something competitive with that? All right. So, okay. So the goal is to get some kind of online strategy that's competitive with min KL without knowing L in advance. Right? You can tell your near anytime. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Warm up. Yeah. Okay, so this will be a factor two approximation. So the idea is like, okay, it costs $100 to ski, $1 to rent every day. On the 100th day, I'll finally buy. So I end up spending $199. For skis, I could have paid just 100 in hindsight, right? Something like this. Okay. Right. First K minus 1 day's rent. On the Kth day, buy. Okay. You'll wish you had only spent exactly K, but it's okay. All right, factor two. So now the question is, as usual, oh, this is not so interesting. Good. All right, so, all right, okay. All right, suppose I change the game a little bit. You are actually allowed to buy one ski at a time, right? So you can actually just buy the ski for your left foot and continue to rent with your right foot. And somehow you're able to get kind of matching skis. Wait till you see what comes next. All right, you still need two skis every day. This is a world with no snowboards. So can anyone do better than two? Anyone do better than two competitive if you're allowed to buy one of two skis at a time? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So can you do so progressively? Would that look something like for a while you rent both skis until you've paid enough to as if you had bought one ski? So like a K over two will buy one of the skis and we'll rent. Something like this. The only point I'm making here is the op doesn't change with this K half ski strategy. Okay, so better than two. Here's at least one example I drew up. Maybe it's the same. Oh, this is blank. Okay. Uh, Slightly after halfway through, I'll buy one ski, and then at day K, I'll buy the second ski. I'm not sure why it is slightly after. Uh, but if I did the calculations, okay, so for L equals 5K over 8, what do you pay? You pay 5K over 8 for renting both every day, plus you finally buy one for K over 2. Okay, and that is equal to 9K over 8. I'm like only mildly sure when I'm presenting if I do this arithmetic correctly. So don't just say sure. 9K over 8, which divided by L will get you something like 9/5. Okay, here L is the best possible. If L is equal to K, you'll have spent 5K over 8 renting both for a little while. And then you'll have paid 3K over 8 for renting one for the next 3K over 8. And then eventually you paid K for both? Yes, it would. Okay, good. And what does this all give you? Sure, sure. What does it give you? Someone say confidently, not laughing. Which makes you nervous. 2916? 16K? And here L is equal to K, so you get a 29 over L is equal to 29 over 16. Not sure which of these ratios is better. Okay. All right, but you're beating two. Okay, in between you'll get slightly better bounds. Okay. So if you can do half skis, you can actually do better. Okay. Now, okay. All right, suppose you had a model like liquid skis. Okay. So okay, you can imagine if you could buy skis by a fourth, maybe you can do even better. All right, so I want to take this to the limit. On any day, you can buy any fraction of a ski you want. So you can say on the first day, give me 0.01 of a ski, and I'll rent the rest. Okay, and then give me 0.03 of a ski, and then rent the rest. Could probably do that virtually. Okay, all right. So formally, I'm gonna let x1 denote the geez, I'm gonna let x1 denote the fraction of skis I buy on day one, x2 the fraction of skis on day two, and so forth. Okay, and that means that on every single day, I need to make sure that the total amount I bought up through day 10, plus I'll pay the remainder to rent, is at least 1. And after L days, here's like the total amount I've paid fractional of a key times K, because that's the cost of a ski, full ski, plus the total rent. Okay, so maybe, huh? Yeah, so fractional skis. So if you buy zero point 0.1 skis, then you're getting 0.05 of each foot. Yeah, so 0.1 of a full set of skis. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'll stick to the punchline in the interest of time. Okay. First thing I want to point out is that op doesn't change. Even with the added flexibility, the best is still min KL. That hasn't changed. Okay. And same strategy as before. Okay, so no big deal. Or maybe I was going to give you guys a chance to guess. Anyone want to guess? Time's up. So here's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to guess some ratio in hindsight. So suppose I'm going for a ratio 1 plus delta. And then what I can do is I can sort of buy as much as possible up to maintain a 1 plus delta competitive ratio. Right? Because I'm going to have to rent to make up, because it might end after day 1, end after day 2, end after day 3. So I should commit to a 1 plus delta ratio, kind of buy as much as I can and rent the rest so that I'm paying at most 1 plus delta on the first day, 1 plus delta times 2 on the second day, by the second day and stuff. Okay, so if you start working through this, okay, x1, you just say, okay, on the first day, I want to pay 1, k times x1 plus 1 minus x1 to rent the rest. And I set that equal to 1 plus delta, and you get some form, delta over k minus 1. The exact calculations don't matter. You're just committing to this 1 plus delta. Like that's going to be, my opt in hindsight. What does it imply? Okay. So you get this kind of thing. Okay. Again, flying through calculations, interest of time, but nothing too special. And okay, let me just. Okay, so now I want to choose. I want to make sure that on day K I fully buy the skis. Okay, so now I kind of have this kind of rule here, and I also want to set x plus 1 plus all the way up equal to 1. Okay, in the interest of time, I'll just show you the calculations. Okay, if you start plugging in, okay, xk, I'm going to substitute this term, so delta over k minus 1. Plus it's going to add 1 over k minus 1 to x1 and x2 and x3. That's why you get k over k minus 1. And if I kept unrolling, you would see you get delta over k minus 1 plus 1 plus k over k minus 1 plus k over k minus 1 squared. It's a little fast because I'm going fast, but it's not magical. Okay? At the end, you get something crazy looking. Okay? But it's just the math. Okay, good. But if you set 1 should be equal to this thing, and you just solve for it, you're going to get the delta should be 1 over this terrible thing. Okay? But what happens when you take the limit? Anyone see? Yeah, this actually looks like e, and then this is just going to go to 1. Okay? So you end up with 1 over e minus 1. And since your competitive ratio was 1 plus delta, you'll end up getting e minus 1 plus 1 over e minus 1. That's e over e minus 1. So you get 1.2. Okay, so you do slightly better. Okay, there is a fun punchline to this. Okay, so this is in some model where you're allowed to buy fractional skis every day. Of course, in real life, you can't. Okay, how can I convert this into a real algorithm? So now every day you have to decide if you're going to buy skis or not. Okay. So x1, I'm going to buy with some probability 0.01 based on the formula. X2, I'm going to buy with some other probability. And so what I'm going to do is, okay, right. Okay, so here's how you can look at it. So at some level, you have to choose a day to buy skis. So you can pre-compute your x's ahead of time just from this formula. Okay. And so I know that between 0 and 1, I can kind of lay out how the x's, and I think they actually increase if you look at the formula carefully. Something like this. Okay. And now you want to choose one of those days. So just through the first day, you should probably choose it with probability x1. But what about the second day? Sorry? Okay, so if you have something like this, now you want to choose one day randomly. Sorry? The sum of x's will add up to 1. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to think of this as like a line, and you're going to randomly pick a random point between 0 and 1, and then whatever x interval that happens to lie in, that's the day you pick. Sorry? Sorry? No. I'm going to pick a random theta. So I'm going to draw theta uniformly at random between 0 and 1, and it's going to somewhere lie on this interval. If it lies, sort of in x4, that means I'm going to buy on the 4th day. Okay. And if you go, I used to have these calculators are missing, but and then what you're going to find if you add up everything at the end is that you're going to, in expectation, get this same ratio. Okay. Calculations should be there, but they're not there. Okay. I kind of mistimed this class, but that's okay. All right. So much for online algorithms. And next time we'll do something different. Yeah.